Welcome to another session of Doug and Doug Talk Prophecy.
We messed that up. We didn't say Doug and Doug Talk Prophecy.
You know, you say it at the end. That's how you end.
Oh.
Carol Burnett always sings that song at the end of her show, not at the beginning.
Well.
This is another session that we're going to be speaking out of Matthew 24, but we're speaking from our lovely Star Trek studios here in beautiful downtown Rio Linda. I know that a lot of you have no idea where we are. Some think that we're in a bunker, but actually it's very spacey here. And this is a design... This is designed to
make us feel
catch your
comfortable.
interest a little bit as to what we're going to be talking about in Matthew chapter 24 again today. One of the things and one of the themes throughout Matthew 24, which again is the nexus of the prophetic side of Jesus' ministry at the end of the age, the culmination of his ministry, which was given on the Mount of Olives, is that the issue throughout the church age, Doug, would be...
This, Doug, is basically his last primary message. This is it.
Yes, this is it.
This is the culmination.
This is the culmination. And they all wanted, the disciples wanted to know, Matthew there was Andrew and John and James and Peter, wanted to know, how's this going to wrap up? Now, was their orientation... how are we going to get rid of the Romans, or were they interested in the next number of years? What was their orientation?
No, because what they specifically asked, the question they put to Jesus, except of course it's picked up in Luke 21, the destruction of the temple, but they conflate the destruction of the temple with the end. They actually think at this particular point in time, we're going to be talking about the end. When are you coming back? What will be the sign of your coming? So in Luke 21, you address the issue, that particular issue, and you include the siege of Jerusalem in 70 A.D. Then in Matthew and Mark, Matthew chapter 24 and Mark 13, that skips over the whole issue of the siege of Jerusalem, and the disciples plunge directly into, or Jesus plunges directly into the final. We're talking about the consummation of the ages.
Yeah, but I think you may have misunderstood what I was trying to get at here, Doug.
That never happens, Doug.
He never misunderstands me. Okay, but what I'm concerned about is the fact that the disciples, when they said, what will be the sign of your coming? How did they even know he was going? Because he told them that he was going?
Basically, he has been talking about his going ever since he set his eyes to go to Jerusalem. He set his mind, his heart to go to Jerusalem. He warned the disciples on numerous occasions.
So
I am going to Jerusalem. I am going to be killed in Jerusalem, and I am...
So they were talking in terms of, okay, if you're going to be going away, if you're going to be crucified, if you're going to be killed, so when are you coming back again? Did they have that understanding?
It was very vague. It was somewhat ambiguous, but there's clarification. There is a growing attempt on the part of the disciples and on the part of Jesus himself in teaching the disciples to eliminate a lot of the ambiguity that heretofore has clouded their understanding of Jesus' ministry. They know at this point that he is the Messiah. That was cleared up in Matthew chapter 16. They know also that there is going to be a transition to a new era, because he talks about the church, again, specifically in Matthew chapter 16.
And again, I think that this is important to continue to reiterate the fact that this context of Matthew 24 and 25 is a message that Jesus is giving to his fledgling church.
That's correct.
It is the message is to the church. Now, a lot of people don't believe that, Doug. Again, I want to say that they don't believe it. They believe this was given primarily to national Israel. What's up with that?
Well, we've discussed that on numerous occasions in the past. I suggest you go back to episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. Even in episode 4, we addressed that particular issue. So I really want to encourage you. We can't go over every subject that we've covered in the past. But Jesus clearly here is speaking to the apostles as the foundation of the church. He's speaking about a transition to the church age, which is the very issue he has been addressing ever since Matthew chapter 16. He has been narrowing the focus, and he's been, the issue that he's been taking up are the prodigious responsibilities that they're going to be shouldering after his departure. So here in Matthew chapter 24, we have a continuation of that theme.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things in Matthew 24, Doug, that you brought out is the different segments that we find. The message of Jesus on these pseudo signs or the false signs were found in Matthew chapter 24 and in verses 4 and 5 and 6. These were signs that you call pseudo signs. Again, I want everybody to catch up on what you mean by pseudo signs or false signs of the end of the age. What do you mean by that?
Again, we've discussed this already in the past, but what we're talking about are the signs that will not be harbingers. They aren't heralds of the end. And he specifically delineates those signs in verses 4, 5, and 6. Then in verse 7, there's a transition to authentic signs.
And those were the birth pangs of the Messiah.
Those are the birth pangs. Those authentic signs are specifically labeled by Jesus himself as birth pangs in Matthew chapter 24, verse 8.
Well, then we go into verse 9, which is actually
That's a transition. We are now transitioning from the harbingers, from the heralds of the tribulation and the second coming, to the tribulation itself. What will occur during the tribulation?
Now, throughout all of this, there is a distinct theme that Jesus keeps raising, because he says, take heed that no one deceives you. That's the first thing he brings up. Many will come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, I am the Christ, and will deceive many. And then in verse 9, again it says, and they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you'll be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. There's that deception.
Okay, so we're talking about deception. What the point that Jesus is making in verses 4, 5, and 6 is, there will be deception, but the deception itself, the false Christs, the wars and the rumors of wars, but you're talking now about the false Christ, the charlatans, the charismatic leaders that promise deliverance that they can't possibly follow up on. Though they are not harbingers or heralds of the end, nevertheless, that kind of deception is going to be moving toward a consummation right up to the transition into the birth pangs era, through the birth pangs era, and into the tribulation itself. So deception will be a hallmark of the tribulation and the lead up to the tribulation. However, because deception is not unique to this particular era, it can't be considered a harbinger of the end, a herald of the end.
Well, one of the things about deception is the fact that in 2 Thessalonians, which later on Paul highlights the fact of this deception. Let no one deceive you. I'm reading from 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3. That day will not come, the actual day of the Lord.
Yes.
Okay, unless there is a falling away first. The falling away comes first. And then the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself. In other words, the matter of deception intensifies even when you get into the 70th, so-called 70th week of Daniel.
It's intensifying now.
It's intensifying
now. There's more deception. The whole world is rife with deception. And of course, what that speaks to is the breakdown of the Judeo-Christian ethic here in the United States and throughout Western Europe. There is basically anything goes. We live in a postmodern era, an era that is characterized by relativism. Anything goes. There is no such thing as sin. There's no such thing as a right or wrong, good and evil. It's whatsoever is right in your own eyes.
Well,
that's the backdrop against which deception can be practiced.
Well,
effectively.
it's individual moral relativism. In other words, I set my own standards. It's sort of like, and then a culture can set its own standards.
That's correct.
As well. But if those standards are not on the basis of an ethic that is, in our case, biblically based, it's anything goes, like you say.
Anything goes.
Now, one of the great deceptions that seems to be plaguing
Well,
us,
I might say too, Doug, because I think this is the point that you're working your way toward. When this kind of deception takes place, it takes place against the backdrop of social fragmentation. The world is spinning out of control, okay? So there's a lot of social fragmentation. You see that occurring in the United States today. Just in the elections that are now the lead up to the elections for the 2016 primaries and the election itself.
No, there could be deception in the election.
Well, because people are searching for some sort of ethic that they can hold on to. That's rife for charismatic leadership. You'll notice that in the last several elections, the focus has been on a charismatic leader, whether it's a Barack Obama, okay, and any time or a Bill Clinton who was quite charismatic, then we had an attempt on the part to run alongside of Barack Obama during the 2008 and the 2012 elections. The Republicans tried to run some basic standard politicians. Didn't stand a chance against the man because people are looking for a deliverer. And that is what we're up against right now. Ideology.
Well, that's what,
rampant.
and that's what
because it provides people with a sense of hope in a world that is spinning out of control, and hopelessness is pretty much the defining characteristic.
Okay, and that's why Jesus is keen on the issue of these charlatans.
That's exactly
and
right.
Of these false Christs.
Yes.
Ultimately leading to the very abomination of desolation.
The appearance of the Antichrist.
Of the man of sin. And it's not necessarily against Christ, it's in place of Christ.
That's correct.
In other words, the man of sin, the son of perdition, the lawless one, is actually a substitute for Christ.
That's
People
correct.
are looking, as you say, for this Messiah.
They're looking for a Messiah.
To get us out of this mess.
Throughout the whole world. Remember, the backdrop of Matthew chapter 24 is the entire world. Okay?
Right.
That's what we're talking about. So the whole world is looking for some deliverer, some kind of a deliverer that promises
Well, do you
peace
think
and prosperity
that
and
deliverer is around the corner?
I think he's right around the corner.
Is that deliverer, that false deliverer, with us right now, you think?
I think I wouldn't be surprised, not at all. I think the world is so out of control at this point. You talk about the breakdown of the economic order right now. You talk about the breakdown of the social order, breakdown of the political order. People are looking for a deliverer. That deliverer, it's the perfect backdrop against which a false Messiah will arise.
In Matthew 24, it states very clearly that people will be offended.
Yes.
And then they will betray one another.
Okay, what that indicates, that's an indication, and that's in verses 9 and in verse 10. What that indicates, again, is the polarization, the breakdown of society. People are being offended by one another. There's no consensus.
Well, isn't that offense being highlighted today with the issue of so-called free speech or free,
oh my goodness, yes.
Free space?
Everybody wants a safe zone because the human psyche cannot handle turmoil. Can't do it. We can't handle ambiguity. We want order, okay? It has to be my idea of order that prevails, but nevertheless, we want order.
Well, you were in the free speech movement there in Berkeley for a while, weren't you?
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed,
Wasn't the whole thing there is I have the right to say something?
The free speech during that era, back in the 1960s, 1963 to be specific, 1964, that occurred against the backdrop of a society, a social complex that was still the Judeo-Christian idea. The Judeo-Christian culture was still held the country together. So it was possible to focus on free speech against that kind of a backdrop. Today, the whole world is out of control. So the last thing that people are looking for is more free speech. That just emphasizes, underscores, exacerbates the social fragmentation.
So you're saying
driving everybody nuts.
You're saying that they're not looking for free speech per se.
No, not anymore.
They're looking for controlled speech.
What they're looking for is safety. You've got a whole generation of kids, particularly Gen Xers and millennials, and the generation that's following right now, the Gen Zers. What's on their mind? The single most important, the primary issue that around which they revolve is, I want safety. I want to be in control. I want to be in control of my own self, my own body, my own way of thinking. I want control.
Well, now we have an issue here that
they don't get it.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think they're not getting is the fact that House Resolution Bill number 569, which some of the folks on TribNet 7000, which is one of our websites, a Facebook page, told us that this 569 House resolution will basically designate that anything defamatory said about Islam or Muslims in general, or considered to be such, will be designated as hate speech.
Basically,
and it will actually be prosecuted under the full banner of the federal government. And so,
the federal government.
In other words, if you consider this as hate speech, and somebody says something on my website that is offensive to Muslims,
yes,
I'm going to be in trouble.
What it really boils down to at the end, what's at the bottom of all of this, is this search for control. I don't want the boat to be rocked anymore. And so that's going to affect us as Christians, because when we evangelize, when we preach the gospel, these are they, Book of Acts, these are they, I think it's Acts chapter, these are they that turn the world upside down. Our message turns the world upside down. So we are going to be caught in, and already are caught in, the crosshairs of a secular elite that is bent on diversity. Again, don't rock the boat. Let's everybody get along with one another. Don't rock the boat. And there's no such thing as an egregious sin. Your sin is my virtue. So when we preach the gospel, we're running up against that whole notion of don't rock the boat, please. Don't add to the turmoil that's already extant throughout the world.
Well, this is going to be a subject.
They call it hate speech.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So you and I could be accused of hate speech.
Yes, we already
Then our
are.
studios here in downtown beautiful Rio Linda, our Star Trek studios, would be,
attacked. That's true. So, what are we going to do?
Well, anyway,
let's wrap it up now, and we'll move on to next week or sometime.
Well, we're hoping to get these messages out a little bit more and stay in the Word of God. We know that deception is coming.
This is the Word of God. This is precisely what Matthew chapter 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21 are talking about. These kinds of trends.
Okay, and one of them is the deceptions, these false messiahs, usually coming in the form of someone who
promising deliverance,
politically will promise deliverance from the current situation.
And Christians need to be very, very careful about it.
And we, of all people, need to be careful.
We are vulnerable.
Because our ultimate deliverer, our ultimate Messiah, our ultimate one, is the Son of Man himself.
He's the one who
come to seek and to save.
He's the one who walked into the temple and kicked over the money changers' desks. He is a revolutionary, okay? And we preach a revolutionary gospel. And even now, you've got a lot of evangelical churches that are backing away from the true revolutionary nature of the gospel and trying to adjust it such that it doesn't run contrary to the kinds of don't rock the boat mindset that's now prevalent throughout this country.
Okay,
well,
so I think that wraps up our session today. another session of Doug and Doug Talk Prophecy. And we hope you enjoyed this. We're going to be doing this hopefully on a weekly basis. We've had some technical difficulties beyond our immediate control, but we are resolving these issues, as you can see in our Star Trek studios here in beautiful downtown Rio Linda. I mean, we've come a long ways, baby, and we're going to go a lot further too by the grace of God. Now, but tell your friends about this. We'd like you to come to our Doug and Doug Talk Prophecy, which you can see at the bottom of your screen here. And we would like to have you subscribe to our channel. We have a YouTube channel at Doug and Doug Talk Prophecy on YouTube, and then we can send you notifications. And thank you for all the positive responses that we've been getting. I
don't think there's been any negative response.
No, there hasn't been any negative. Otherwise, we would tell you that. Oh, sure, we would tell you about the negative. but we, at the same time, are really thankful that the Lord is blessing us and His presence is with us. And may His grace be with you too in these coming days ahead of us. A lot of uncertainty out there with the economy, the political situation, and of course here in the United States with these elections going on. A lot of uncertainty.
Tumult.
So let's just wrap this up for this time, and we'll be seeing you next week. This is Doug
and Doug Talk Prophecy.
And again, we know that a lot of you have a lot of questions with regards to, number one, I mean, Greek, we're talking tribulation here, and we're not supposed to go through tribulation, or are we? And then what's the purpose of all this? And we know you have questions, and we want to hear those questions, and we want you to talk prophecy to us, okay?